Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, to cut a long story short, I really like the whole domain of supply chain. And I've been with this for over 30 years now. So, automotive examples being, shared. So, let me share with you my example of automotive. At one point in my life, I used to work with the Suzuki joint venture in India, Maruti Suzuki. And one of the biggest problems we used to have those days is, it used to be huge, high volume automotive production. And so the factory was near Delhi, and we had to send out cars to all parts of India. I'm talking about early 90s, roads were not as great as they are now. They're not great still, but. So the biggest challenge for us was, when these truckers take out these cars from our factory, where are they? At what point would they land in the specific dealer points, and how would the dealers promise delivery and make sure that they can commit on that? And guess what the response would be? Because we don't have that visibility, the response would be keep more stock. Everyone would kind of overstock. So, when in 2013 or 2014, this whole term of IoT came about, I was excited. I was excited because IoT can solve so many things, but I thought IoT can definitely solve that. Where my trucks are at this point of time. And I started doing the rounds of conferences and hearing things about IoT. And one thing kept bothering me whenever I would go into any discussion around IoT. People were talking too much of technology. There is so much discussion on the necessary communications infrastructure, the WAN, LAN, MAN, PAN, the whole enabling of the sensors. But not many people were talking about business problems and business value, right? So I thought, now that I have got a captive audience, let me share my thoughts around how we could be thinking through the whole topic of what does IoT, IoT is kind of the holy grail, right? If I can get my objects talking to my business applications, I have the cyber and physical world together. That's it. Everything can be solved, right? So why are we not doing it? So I thought, my perceptions, your perceptions are all perceptions. But at this time, there is more perceptions than data. So at least let me get to some structured perceptions around and through a survey. And that's when I decided to, I leveraged Ecosystem's IoT survey, where Ecosystem surveyed, a whole range of decision makers and influencers on the current state of IoT in their organization. And my interest was, so it was across the board, across all industries. But of course, my interest, being a supply chain person, my interest was those companies who are primarily supply chain driven. Those who are designing products, making products, moving products, physical. Yeah. So I took a cross section of, and also, we are all in Asia, and I'm sure most of your decision making and working happens in this region. So I took a cut of organizations in Asia Pacific and in supply chain intensive industries. And this is what the question was. Sorry, I should have got there. Uli, I'm following your lead. Okay. So, when it comes to IoT, expectations are high. High expectations. So we asked, in which areas will your organization benefit from IoT implementation? We asked 378. So this cut was 378 respondents, fairly representative, right? Everyone is aiming high. business model innovation, product innovation, competitive advantage, workforce optimization, of course, cost savings and all that, right? So when it comes to what IoT can do, everyone has high hopes that IoT can do. And now you know that there is a but coming, right? I'll bring it later on. The intent is strong. So when we asked, which stakeholder does your organization involve whenever you're talking about IoT or taking decisions about IoT implementations? Senior management is up there. So no IoT implementation is happening without the senior management getting involved. That's a good thing. Yeah? There are no, small time players, doing some skunk work around IoT in their organizations. Now comes the but. But it is very IT driven still. And that could be one of the reasons why there is so much of technical discussions and jargons being floated around in any discussions or conferences or seminars. Also, do you see very low involvement of strategy? If we have to rethink our business model, we have to get our strategy people involved. Duh. And you are not involving people who are on the ground, who are actually probably using the objects today, and you'll get, those objects that you will get responses from, right? So if you're not bringing them in, how do you know what the challenges are? So that was the first part. The second part was still very isolated. So we asked, do you have a specific team focused? Only about 25% of the organizations we talked to, they had, in supply chain intensive industries, they had a kind of a focused initiative going, a formal team, structured and driving. 75% was still off and on, right? And we asked, again, supply chain intensive industries, which of the IoT use cases have been part of your biggest IoT projects? Only 14% on inventory. I would think supply chain, moving products, inventory optimization should be one of the biggest things, right? So if you're doing an IoT project in a supply chain intensive industry, inventory should be a key part of it. So I would think that it should be maybe more than 50%. But that's not. Biometric access, yeah, it's important, but that's not, core supply chain. Warehouse management, core supply chain, I can understand. But only, and by the way, I did the cut for only top 10. Only 2 floats up. So the question comes to my mind is, are we really trying to figure out what the use cases should be in my industry, in my company, and working on them so that I can get the right value out of this promised land? Probably not. And that gets me to wonder why. So, and the way I try to answer it is probably we are not asking the questions in the right sequence. We are very focused on how, which is, again, in all fairness, that's what happens with new technologies. The leaders will get in, they will try experimenting, and then they'll get the whole enterprise in, right? So, but at some point, you have the business or the enterprise have to start taking control, and that's still not happening. So right now, we are very focused still on the how piece of it, and not spending enough time on the why and what piece of it. So why is the business case? Debashish mentioned very nicely, should I be doing digitalization? Why? What is the business case? Why should I change at all? Just because IoT is something new doesn't mean that I have to do IoT. There are so many other processes and systems and people pieces that I need to bring together before I'm ready for IoT. Am I thinking through that? So why is what I call the business case. Only when I've asked and answered the why question well, can I ask the what question? So now that yes, there is a clear business case on the reasons why we should be going towards IoT or any kind of new technology adoption, what are the areas? If we are not doing that, then that's exactly what will happen. That in a supply chain intensive industries, there's so little, and sporadic attempts happening around inventory optimization. And this what is we call the use case. So right now, a lot of interactions I'm seeing, a lot of articles, a lot of blogs that I'm seeing are on use cases, but I'm still not seeing a good sequential thought process in the companies I interact with, where they're thinking through this whole process. And that goes to the heart of what Debashish just mentioned. You have to really think why you're digitalizing. Would you kind of agree? Yeah? But, so there's a few parts here. It's all good, right? Intuitive, nice. But how do I do it? What is the process that I go through? So before we can think of the process, let's think through what could be the core problem. And the core problem, and I stated this earlier, is probably that there is a classic business and technology disconnect happening in the area in this area. It could be happening in other technology areas also, but I'm talking specifically now. The geeks, the technologists, they're excited. They're developing all of these cool technologies. But the CXOs, whose bread and butter is how do I get to new customers, how do I get to new markets, what kind of products do I bring in, what kind of people, what kind of organizational structure, they are too far removed from how this technology can happen. So if we have to ask the why, what and how questions in sequence, we need a methodology, we need a framework, right? And the framework that has worked for me in my previous lives in SAP, Oracle, and which can work for organizations, is that we can't think in silos, these two boxes in silos. They are all linked in terms of any technology will have an impact on a particular process area. And only by developing process capabilities would I enable my strategy. So, if I have to get the strategy right, if I'm not, I need to think through my strategy, understand what kind of process capabilities do I need, and then think of what kind of technology capabilities I need. And IoT could be one of the answers, but it cannot be the sole answer. Yeah. And we have to we are talking about the why, business value, so we have to get into measuring. And we have to put numbers on the table that if I'm doing this IoT implementation, again, let me just take the inventory example, I'll have 10% improvement in forecast accuracies, that will have 15% improvement in my customer service levels, and that will have 5% reduction on the inventory levels. Then, when I'm working on it, I need to try to get to that. Otherwise, we are kind of talking in the air, right? This is all really nice intent, but not much, results. So, the way I like to think through this is the ROIC model. Any business exists because of shareholders. So maximizing shareholder value is my key goal. There are two levers to getting me higher shareholder value. I have invested my capital, I need to get a return. And that capital I have borrowed, so I need to manage that well, right? Because if my borrowing cost is higher than the return I'm getting, I'm not getting that. This is kind of more external, right? Market conditions, Fed rates. So let me not get into this part of it, but let's just expand this tree and see how we can build the thought process logically. So return on invested capital, there are two parts. I need to have good operating margin, and I need to be, again, return on invested capital means margin by capital. So I need to get my capital efficiency high. And I need to be working on my process such that I get good operating margins. Operating margin, increase revenue, reduce cost, capital efficiency, reduce working capital, reduce fixed cost, right? Simple. Now let's try to put the IoT filters. What is IoT giving me? If I'm implementing this technology, what are those core capabilities that I get? And those are, I get better visibility, and this list can go on, right? And a few of them. Increased responsiveness, because now I know, what's happening on the ground at this point of time, so I can react faster. In 2000, I remember I was implementing a global supply chain planning optimization project. And that had two big components, demand forecasting and supply chain planning. The demand forecasting program will take 20 hours to complete. And then it will feed into the supply chain planning program, which will take another 20 hours to complete. By the time I get any good feedback on what my plan would be, 2 days or 3 days are almost gone. Whereas now you can really respond fast. And we had data which was 1 week old or 2 weeks old. But now with IoT, hopefully the data veracity would be good, because now objects are giving us the data, not people. They are not manually entering the data, and they are giving it to me now, and I have better technology solutions to do the planning. So I can do good response. I can be better responsive. Increased flexibility, because if this warehouse runs out, I can put, I can send it through another warehouse, and it gives me flexibility, and so on and so forth, right? Higher, overall equipment effectiveness, because I get better machine data, I can utilize them, I can, manage them better, and so on. What is key is to understand, each of these business capabilities has an impact in revenue, cost, working capital, and fixed capital. What are those? We need to understand them in your context. I've given an example. If I have all of this, hopefully I should get higher service levels. Hopefully I should know what's happening on the ground on the current promotion I ran, and which are those outlets which are taking, and I can probably understand and direct my promotions and advertisements better. Of course, operating costs, inventory cost reduction, and better asset utilization. So systematically going through this process of what is IoT giving me, and how it is impacting my process, and how it is helping me do better on my operating KPIs, will help me understand how it is impacting my financial KPIs. Which is essentially, I am bringing in the process filter. Because if you are not bringing in this whole sequence of thought, then we are talking there. Okay, so now let me ask you a question. With this understanding of the framework, an FMCG company in Singapore, they have good revenue, customers are satisfied, but operating margins are declining. and they have low capacity utilization. How would IoT help them? If they have to do any kind of IoT implementation, which is the area that they should be working? Yeah, it's a question for you. Again, that's always fun. Decrease costs, right? So they already have low capacity utilization, right? So, if they can they already have demand. But so this is one, definitely, but this is probably the bigger one. So I would draw the ROIC tree as this. I need to address my operating margin, but that operating margin would not come from revenue. It would come from decreasing costs. And I need to reduce my working capital costs also. And I need to, get these parts fixed. So you see, now you get a better clarity on, if I'm thinking through IoT, I will not get into, working with my retailers to put sensors in those outlets and try to understand what my, how my consumption is happening. Because customers are reasonably satisfied. That's not a problem that I'll handle today. But the problem that I'll handle today is on the, how can I have better visibility and control on my supply chains so that I'm automating, I'm making it more effective, I'm taking faster decisions, and hence I'm reducing my costs. So that is my, that was the main thing that I wanted to talk about really. And this is so I started off with why, what, and how. This is the why. For every company there is a why. Why do I need to change? And that answers the what. What do I need to do? Which areas? And what capabilities do I really need from IoT? And then I should get into the how part of it. Now you may ask, okay, again, this is good, but from a 30,000 feet level, we have come down to a 10,000 feet level. We know what to do, but how do I establish the value? And how do I put those stakes on the ground that gets me there? And there are multiple approaches available, and I've seen them being used a lot in the industry. I have personally used them myself. You could take a stance on, just move the needle. Currently, my inventory turns are 6. I believe that if I am doing an IoT implementation in this particular region, I can increase it to at least 9. That's something that you're feeling from your gut. You don't have to justify everything, but you can take small steps. But that 8 or 9's, milestone gives you a target to achieve and gets you focused on the end outcome and not the technology. That is what matters ultimately. You could go into more sophisticated. There are benchmarking exercises available where people will share with supply chain optimization capabilities what kind of benefits people have got in terms of various operating KPIs. And you could see, what is the scope that I'm working on, and hence what could be the target that I could be doing. And then you can use this to get your own capital budgeting exercise worked out. These are my current costs, these are the promised revenues, and my hurdle rate is 98%. So you're good. With a hurdle rate of 40%, it's a no-go because costs are now, revenues are promised. So you have to be really good at justifying. And based on that, you kind of develop a roadmap. Again, to Debashish's point, you can't traverse that 5-level journey in digital maturity in one day. You can't do everything today also. So what is it that you won't need to do now? How do you plan your roadmap? There is a key question that of course, 20 minutes and Uli is looking at me. So the other key question is, when should I do it? Why should I do it? What should I do? how should I do it, and when should I do it. That's it from my side. Thank you.